Hello, dear listener. Welcome once again to Yes Users, a potentially award winning podcast with huge emphasis on the word potential. So, let's start with what we do best, going deep into the thoughts of market leaders who are disrupting the status quo. So, hang on tight because we are having a phenomenal guest with us today. Her name is Sana Usman. Now, in case you haven't come across Sana before, let me introduce her. With 18 years of experience in marketing under her belt, she is presently serving as Chief Marketing Officer of Dolami Inc. So grab a cup of coffee and sit back as we unfold the story of marketing wizard that is Sana Usman. So, Sana ma'am, welcome to Yes Users podcast. How are you feeling today?
Thank you so much. Feeling great. Avinash, thanks so much for the opportunity. I'm sure it'll be great talking to you today.
We hope so. So, I was looking at your career. You had a very vast career. I'm sorry if I'm making you feel old, but you started your career.
I started young.
Yeah, that's good. So you started your career as a graduate in mass communication, right? And then you started a company, then you have been part of Google, you have been part of Facebook, right? So you started your career with a bang, right? But later on, I saw that you have been more associated with startup. So what was the reason behind that shift?
So I think the whole startup culture is very, very different from a corporate culture, right? In a corporate, you're working with people across the globe and there are so many different teams, and I feel there's not much challenges that you can face in a corporate. I mean, definitely there's the personal side of it where there's a lot of politics and all that goes on. But on the other hand, when you talk about personal growth in terms of what you're doing and what you're learning and everything, there are certain times when work gets monotonous and there's no learning curve. And nowadays, you have to constantly keep learning, right? That's how you grow. If you're not pivoting constantly with your strategies, with what you're doing, then there's no growth. And the startup culture really attracted me. It's a lot of fun to work with a smaller team, a more dynamic team, and a super motivated team. Everyone in a startup is very, very motivated, and they're self-motivated. They don't need, big paychecks, or they don't need fancy policies and all of that. It's just the company and the work that they do that keeps people in the startup culture motivated, and that really attracted me. And you get to learn a lot from each other, not just about the industry, about, different working styles, whether it's from the technology team or the marketing team or the creative team. You just get to learn a lot. Every day there's something that you learn when you're working in a smaller team, a smaller office, so more fast-paced, dynamic culture. So that really attracted me. I think that's why after my initial 5-6 years, I've stuck to startups, smaller companies for the rest of my 10-12 years.
Right. But I know, I completely agree with your statements because I'm also part of startup. So I completely agree. These are the pros of, working with a startup. But cons are, startups rarely have huge budgets. And the demand they have from their employees is often on the higher side. So how do you manage having limited budgets and having a demanding job? Obviously, as you grow in your career, you also grow in your personal life. At some point, you want to devote a little more time to the personal side rather than just, pulling in all-nighters in the startup. So how are you able to address these two challenges?
So I think the demand is there irrespective of whether you're working for a big company or a small. If you want to prove that you're worth the money they're investing in you, big or small, then you have to fulfill that demand, right? But also on the other hand, yes, you have to somewhere strike a balance. And I've been fortunate, I would say, of having a good team and a supportive family to help me strike that balance. And I always believe in empowering my team. So most of the time, I'm more like a mentor to my team where I let them do what they want to. And I won't be like, this is something I have to do and I will finish it and give them the smaller task. it's okay to make mistakes because we learn from those mistakes. So if they are making mistakes, I'm fine with that, but I like to empower them and give them the opportunity to learn more and grow. So I think that has also helped me keep that balance between work and personal life as well. So yeah, I think that's how you cater to the demand in the startup culture. And you have to believe that the company is your own, the product is your own. You have to have that passion. That's when it doesn't bother you that much. Even if you're pulling those all-nighters once in a way, it's not a hassle when you look at it as your own. But the moment you look at it as a job, then even going beyond that 6 p.m. mark to 7 p.m. is like an all-nighter.
Absolutely. So you have recently taken a job at Dolami Inc. as a chief marketing officer. So in my opinion, a lot of people don't know what Dolami does, right? So first of all, please explain that to our listeners. And second of all, what excites you the most about joining Dolami and what kind of future does it hold?
So at Dolami, basically right now, our mission is to provide free expression and the freedom to express in the VR world, in the metaverse. So right now we are building a platform, gooavatar.com, where creators can list their avatars for sale. So it's a marketplace for avatars where you get avatars and you also get avatar accessories. Like you can get clothes, you can get jewelry and all of that for your avatars. When you use VR and you go into the metaverse, you have to have an avatar. And this is a 3D model, a representation of you. So it could be exactly how you look. It could be a robot. It could be an anime character. You can be anything in the metaverse. You don't have to be Avinash. You can be anything. So that's the platform we provide for creators. It's a very nascent baby industry, I would say, with tons of potential. So I think Japan is leading when it comes to VR and, social VR and all of that. They are way ahead of the rest of the world, but now everybody is catching up. If you go to Amazon and look for VR headsets, you have tons of variety. You have like the Meta Quest, you have Apple Pro 2, you have the local VR headsets, which you'll find for like maybe $100 or so, which are really cheap. So it's a growing industry and it's the future. Like maybe 10 years back, we would say, AI is the future. And one day there will be technology like this where, there's generative AI. You say something and it'll pop up. Today we're seeing that. We're living it. And that's what VR is going to be in the future. Maybe headsets will evolve. We'll go from big, bulky headsets to really sleek ones where people might just be walking around wearing VR headsets. And that is definitely the future. And to be a part of a company that's stepping into that future and to be a part of it early on, I think is a great opportunity for me, because somewhere you get to set the standard for marketing. Right now, nobody's exploring marketing or nobody's really... There are people definitely who are exploring marketing, but it's at a very basic level. Nobody's experimenting with it, and we get to do all those things. You get to do stuff and fail at it and pivot and, improve and eventually become the leaders in marketing in that space. So I think it's a great opportunity for me to be a part of a company that's completely associated with VR and VR technology. We're starting off with avatars, but definitely, there's so much more to explore.
Wow. Couldn't agree more. And I'm really happy to see that, you are excited with the mission statement. Because to be honest, personally, I have my doubts about VR as a platform or as a technology, right? But yeah, I've been proven wrong a lot of times in past. So I don't know how
I'm sure you'll be proven wrong again.
Yeah, let's see. So, because in startups, your role constantly keeps on changing. As you said, then Dolami right now is in a nascent stage. So, in the last 2-3 months since you have joined Dolami, has there been any shift in what role you were earlier doing, and now there's a shift in that?
I wouldn't say there's a shift, but definitely for me, because it's new technology and it's a completely new space in terms of marketing, right? if you look at general digital marketing or traditional marketing, there are certain things that you can do. You can do social media, you can do Google search ads and all of that. But VR is completely different. My users, my target audience is in the metaverse. They are in the VR space. So I have to get into that space and understand them and then create my marketing plans. So it's been a huge learning curve, and there's still a lot to learn for me because it's a completely new space. So the style of marketing has to change. What I do, how I'm going to do my marketing strategies, everything has to constantly change. So today we've decided something and we start working on it and we realize a week later that no, this is not going to work for this audience. So again, we have to pivot and change. So we've seen that happen in the VR space. And I think another challenge that I faced is where I had to learn the technology as well. It's not just about putting on a headset and getting into a VR world or, exploring VR chat for social and all of that. There's so much more to it. Within VR chat also, there are different words. How does the audience react to a certain word? What do they understand? All of that. Their time zones, like when do they go into VR? How much time do they spend? And sometimes you go to do your research and you go to this great VR world and you try to interact with people and they turn out to be kids. So it's crazy, but it's also fun. There's a lot to learn yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you rightly said that, Japan is leading the anime and the VR bandwagon. So how do you apprise yourself with the cultural nuances that comes with your job? Because, you are sitting on the other side of the world on a very different time zone. And Japan is very popular for having its peculiar cultures, right? So how do you apprise yourself when you're offering a product to an international audience?
So you learn with them, right? As excited as we are to interact with them, they have equal amount of excitement. They also want to interact with you, and they're very keen to understand what you're offering. And what I really like is, although the only major barrier sometimes is language, but otherwise they're very open and they're very honest with their approach. So if they're not comfortable with the language and they're not that great at English, they'll be very honest about it and they'll tell you that, this is going to be a problem in our communications. Are you okay with it? And then you go ahead. So they're very welcoming that way. So we haven't really faced any challenges. And also we are trying to penetrate in the US market because Japan, we are there and people know about the company and all of that. So right now we're trying to penetrate in the US market and be the early riders there because VR is really getting popular in US right now.
Wow. Kudos to the amazing job that you guys have been doing so far. And best of luck for the US market.
Thank you.
With your vast and extensive experience, what major changes have you observed in the marketing landscape over the years? Or do you have any memories of what used to happen in the olden days and which is not absolutely true, something along those lines?
So marketing, 18 years is a long time, 2 decades. And marketing has evolved. It's taken a 360-degree turn from the time I started off. So 18 years is my official career, but while in my graduation, I was into event management, which is sort of marketing as well. And that time, there was so much focus on traditional marketing. You'd see great billboards, you'd see newspaper ads and flyers and all of that. And then suddenly Google came with search ads and people were fascinated by those small little ads. But obviously, technology was not that advanced and people were not that advanced to use technology that much. So it was still small. You would still see all the traditional marketing, radio and television and all of that. Now it's completely different. So we've gone from basic search ads with like 30 characters per line where you hardly have any space to say anything, to fancy video ads, to Instagram, to social media, where there's a very thin line between your audience and your brand. So marketing, I would say, has become a lot more difficult now compared to the earlier days when there was traditional marketing, because one small mistake and you're doomed on social media, and that really affects your brand value and what you speak about and, all of it. And you have to be really careful with your messaging. You can't not be a health drink and say you're a health drink anymore. If you're a health drink, you have to prove that you are a health drink, because there's so much scrutiny. And there was scrutiny previously as well, but nobody got to know about it. But today, if I have a problem with a brand and I catch something that I don't like and I can prove them wrong, sitting in my house, I can create hell for them. So that's the power of social media nowadays. So marketing has become very challenging. You have to be really careful with what you're saying, how you're saying it. You might think that this messaging is fine and it will work. It might work, but maybe negatively, because there might be a small section of people who are not okay with it. And then you have to deal with, how do you overcome all of that? Like, how do you deal with that small section of people and convince them that, you know what, this is not our intention, you got us wrong, let us fix this and move ahead. And there is that section of people who are always waiting to find these loopholes and get their 5 minutes of fame. So it's evolved in that way, where there's no connection between your audience and you, to now the audience being completely involved in everything that you're doing. So it's taken a 360-degree turn.
Wow. That's a very interesting perspective. And, a lot of entrepreneurs that I speak to, this aspect of like crisis management is never on the top of people's priority, right? So I wanted you to I hope nobody lands in that position, but if they do, what is the right approach to manage a crisis? Something like this, you said something which was technically wrong, but, it wasn't a plain white lie, right? Something, if someone lands in such a situation, how should they approach this particular crisis?
I think the first step is acceptance, right? If you've made a mistake, just accepting that mistake itself is one big hurdle that you've crossed. Because once you are open to the fact that, okay, I have made a mistake, I agree, then you can sit down and understand how to come up with the solution, the kind of messaging that needs to go out. Say you have to give an apology. You obviously have to make sure that you're saying sorry and you're still giving a justification and you're not looking like a complete idiot out there. So I think the first step is to accept, and then sit down and analyze why you went wrong and where you went wrong, and try to figure out how you can fix it. So analysis is very important. Sometimes you fail even when a campaign doesn't go well. Instead of giving it a complete, say it's a 30-day campaign, instead of giving it that complete 30 days, if you notice that you're failing in the first 10 days, sit down and do a deep dive, like do an analysis of the campaign and pivot, change. Because we are moving so fast that you don't have the time to wait for so long to finish something. You could do that earlier, right? But now it's not best practice to do that. You have to constantly keep pivoting, keep changing in your strategies and all of that to get the best results. So crisis management, I would say, accept, analyze, and then act. That's what you should do.
Great advice there. And that brings me to the next question I wanted to ask is that, because you have seen the whole industry turned upside down and you have seen so many changes. So how do you keep yourself updated with the latest trends? Do you keep doing courses? I know everybody says that, you have to learn, you have to keep pace with the changes, but it's good on a broader level. But what are the practical things, right? What are the concrete things that people should be implementing in their daily life? So should they be doing like one course every year? What are your tips and insights on that particular topic?
You definitely have to do courses, Avinash, because the technology keeps changing. It's gone from Google Analytics to GA4. So what are the changes? So the easiest way to understand is either you spend hours together on YouTube and keep looking at, videos from different influencers who've done the courses themselves, or you just go ahead and do a course, especially if it's big companies, they have their own courses. If it's big tools, they have courses the moment they have a product launch or something. So take a course, be up to date with market standards. That's the easiest way. And I think reading that really helps. Like, stay up to date with technology, follow a few news channels, or on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has so much information. Follow the experts there. You have big people, follow big companies, like follow a Google, follow a Meta, all of them on LinkedIn, and you'll be up to date with whatever is happening in the market. And, whatever changes are there, it's important to be up to date with tools, because there might be a chance where, say, you're not using Google in your current company for ads or whatever, and suddenly after like 6 months, you need to use Google. And there'll be a hell lot of changes within that 6 months. So either you keep using all the tools that are used generally, like say there's Google Ads, there's social media, there's HubSpot, and you subscribe to all of them and just keep using those tools to stay updated with how it's changing, or you take courses. This is when we're talking about tools, but strategies and everything in general also keep evolving. So it's always good to follow a lot of people that inspire you in terms of marketing. Watch podcasts, watch vlogs that people have where they talk about their strategies, they talk about their growth, because everybody has something to share. And you will definitely learn something. If in maybe a 1 hour video, you might find 5 minutes useful, but those 5 minutes will have a huge impact in your strategies and your style of marketing or any industry that you talk about. So I think rather than spending time on watching movies and stuff, I think watch entertaining interviews and
like this
read
one.
up a lot. I hope. And read up a lot. That really helps you stay up to date with current trends.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So all the people who are listening to this, you guys are doing the smart thing. So, the way technology evolves, I'm part of a startup called GetAIMonitor.com. So what we are trying to do is that, everybody knows about SEO, right? Now what is happening is that more and more people are relying upon the large language models or AI search experiences. Like, even now, even if you do a simple search, Google will give you just an AI overview of all the search. So now how do you manage the brand's visibility there? Because SEO doesn't work there, right? So the term that we have coined is called LLM SEO. So we are working on that. And when the team came to me, and I was really surprised, I was like, yeah, this is a problem even I'm facing. Because I remember a couple of months back, there was a startup I was working on, and there was something negative, like slightly negative written about by an AI. And I was thinking how do we solve that? Right. And now, luckily, we are solving that problem for a lot of brands. So this is the new trend for people who are interested in marketing, and we are part of. And this is a shameless plug, but it's okay. I hope you get something out.
It's relevant.
It's relevant, at least. Yeah. So now, are you ready for the rapid fire round, ma'am?
Yeah, I am.
Awesome. What's your favorite marketing tool?
I love Google Analytics and HubSpot for all my social media and social listening and all of that.
Yeah, in the future, it's going to be AI Monitor. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. We do a good job, and Sana ma'am can recommend that publicly. Now, next question.
Definitely.
I would be honored, ma'am. The next question is, name a book that has influenced your career.
So one book that I really liked is Contagious: How to Build Word of Mouth in the Digital Age. It's by Jonah Berger. And it talks about the science of how certain ideas and products go viral. And he talks about 6 principles of contagiousness, which is social currency, triggers, emotion, public, practical value, and stories. Of these, I think something that I try to implement in all my marketing strategies is triggers, emotion, and stories. I think that's the only thing that works with people nowadays.
Yeah, I just want to point it out. Sana ma'am has very eloquently looked at somewhere and seen the six principles. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't remember it on top of my head. I have it written down.
That's great. Sana ma'am, before they do, she must be trying to remember. Oh God, I'm back to college. I have to remember these six things now. So
Yeah, and I'm not a book person, so I don't read too much. Very few books that I've read throughout my life, I would say. So I prefer watching stuff and understanding rather than reading. I don't have the patience, I would say, to read. Yeah.
Same here. Like, I rarely read books, I listen to them. And to be honest, like, mugging up doesn't really matter. You have to understand the concept, right?
Exactly.
So the choice book that you recommended is really great because, I speak to a lot of marketers and they are a lot of times focus on the techniques more rather than the strategy, right? What I could gather, like, you also understand at the end of every marketing campaign, there's a human, and humans are more affected by emotions and stories.
Emotions and stories.
Right.
And you don't matter, like, nowadays you see there are some ads which are so long, right? Like if you see the Surf Excel ad on Daag Achhe Hai, so it's this Eid ad that they had released during Eid a couple of years back. It's about a 2 or 3 minute ad, but you really want to watch it. It's completely unrelated to Surf Excel, the entire ad, but it triggers so many emotions, and you see a small child running and, trying to get to another person. And so it's such an emotional ad that you actually sit through that entire 3 minute and without skipping, and you watch it. So you remember it. I remember it. I know a lot of people who remember it and talk about it. So it's an emotional trigger. That's definitely a very, very successful marketing campaign for them.
And like it's even greater for their target audiences, right? Which unfortunately in India is middle-aged women. Which shouldn't be the case, but it is. And that brings me, like, I've seen so many bad ads. There's this ad by Fabric Care feature in which, Shah Rukh Khan and Alia Bhatt appear. And what they're essentially trying to say that, the Fabric Care that is so advanced that, even if it's get dirty, they can clean it.
You just have to wipe it off.
Right. Half of the time, I don't understand whether they are talking about the liquid, they're selling the liquid, or they're selling the fabric. Right. And if you speak to general people, I'm sure they won't be able to remember. So they have spent so much money, getting two of the most in-demand Bollywood celebrities and still not be able to, communicate the emotion.
Exactly.
Right.
The ad is more about Shah Rukh Khan and Alia Bhatt.
Exactly.
Rather than any emotional trigger.
The product. Yeah. Right. So that's what I feel is what happens when, people just say like, okay, just get the celebrities and we'll be able to sell stuff.
Not always.
Right.
Doesn't work always.
So moving on to the next rapid fire question, VR or AR, which do you think has more potential in marketing?
Right now, I would say AR because it's getting in everywhere, like simple apps like nowadays shopping apps like Myntra and Amazon and all of that, Try Now. You have those features where there are skincare companies where you can just take a picture and it analyzes your skin and all the wonderful Snapchat filters. There's so much AR. So right now it's definitely AR, but the future is definitely VR for me. Maybe not the near future, maybe not in 3 years, 5 years, but post that, I think people will start getting into VR a lot. There are some really good brands. I mean, like Gucci and McDonald's are already in the VR space. Gucci actually sells stuff in VR, virtual reality. So it's crazy. I mean, I was surprised to see when I started using VR, but they're already there. They're the early riders, but everybody will slowly start joining the bandwagon. Like you see real estate companies nowadays, right? They give you a tour of the apartment or the house or the villa through VR where you can actually experience it. So it's a completely different thing from just seeing pictures. Imagine putting on a headset and, turning and you see your dining table and with some snacks on it and you see the TV with something playing. So it gives the consumer a completely different experience. So it's just getting started, and there are some early riders. So I think today AR is definitely taking over the market, but it will join hands with VR. So they will go hand in hand, and in the long run, I'm sure it's going to be VR.
Wow, great insights there. And like seeing your furnitures in AR, I think it's a very good use case. And I personally have used a couple of times. Like before buying the furniture online, I could see like how would it look, like how would it fit in my own room or office. So definitely great answer there. Now the next question is, what is your go-to strategy for staying productive?
I think regenerating. Right. Like you said, working for startups, you have those all-nighters and it's a high demand work atmosphere. Sometimes you have a really small team, so you end up doing most of the work. So more than getting physically exhausted, you get mentally exhausted and you need to regenerate. So I play solitaire every day at the night, and my husband hates it, but I do it. So no matter how late it gets, I have to have like one or two games. It just helps me relax. A very random thing, but it does. But making sure you take that one day off in the week where you are just not touching your laptop for
Right.
anything. It could be for personal or professional, but just don't touch the laptop because that is related to work. So you, by default, go and check your work email to see if something's come up or something. So just don't touch your laptop for one day in the week and give yourself that, mental detox and technology detox, I would say, and definitely take a vacation once in a year. It really helps.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with you. So the next question is, what's your favorite social media platform for marketing?
Right now, I think the places where everybody is Instagram and Twitter. I mean, X, not Twitter anymore. But that's where everybody is. So Facebook is fading. I think it's already faded out. You just see really old people who are still comfortable with Facebook, but they are also jumping on to Instagram, and I think Snapchat is getting there. People really love Snapchat, but from a marketing perspective, I don't think it's there as yet. The leader is definitely Instagram right now across the globe.
Yeah. The last question is, one brand that you admire the most and why?
In terms of marketing, I would say the Dollar Shave Club and Airbnb. So Dollar Shave Club, because they have a crazy marketing strategy and they completely changed the whole, concept of men's grooming. And they had very low budget videos and things that they used. And humor was a major part of their marketing strategy. And I think that was the emotion that they played on and connected with their audience and literally went viral and really grew. So that, and since I work with startups, I look for companies and do research on companies that have had low budget marketing strategies. So, because as you know, startups always have a budget problem. So Airbnb is another one where they've used a lot of marketing strategies where they literally have zero budget involved. They've gone viral and they sort of brought in an entire new industry, giving people a new stream of work and income, and it's a great company and a great company to study in terms of marketing. So yeah, these two. You asked for one, I gave you two.
No, we anyway got double the benefit from the podcast, what we were expecting.
I hope.
So, Sana ma'am, thanks a lot for coming on the Yes Users podcast, sharing your story and marketing insights. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me, Aman. It was really nice talking to you.
That was one hell of an experience, isn't it? Many thanks to Sana for being here with us today. Did you pick up on all those nuggets of wisdom? Her wealth of knowledge in marketing and her passion for leveraging technology to create impactful strategies have truly inspired me. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to share it within your network and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, this is your host Avinash Tripathi signing off. Keep pushing the boundaries and making a difference in your field.